I battled the HOA that wrecked my dad's land, only to uncover he'd been their top investor all along. How would you feel discovering the group you're fighting is secretly bankrolled by your own family? The roar of machinery jolted me awake at 6 a.m. On a Tuesday, I staggered to my window, rubbing sleep from my eyes, and saw a yellow bulldozer ripping into the vacant lot behind our house. My coffee mug slipped from my hand, smashing on the hardwood floor. "Dad," I yelled, racing downstairs. "Someone's tearing up our buffer zone." My father, Henry, stood on the back porch in his robe, his face creased with bewilderment. For 30 years, he'd owned that strip of land behind our home. He bought it to keep a safe gap between us and the community center. "This has to be a mix-up," he mumbled, fumbling for his phone. "No one can build there without my say-so." I watched his expression crumble as he made call after call. Something was way off. By noon, 5 construction rigs had shredded half the green space. Workers had sprayed orange paint to mark boundaries that oddly cut into what I knew was our land. When Dad and I confronted them, they just pointed to their orders. "Pinewood HOA gym expansion." One guy shrugged. "Take it up with management." Dad's hands trembled as we headed to the community center. He'd lived in Pinewood for 40 years, helped shape it from scratch. Everyone knew Henry Carter. Everyone admired Heimer, so I'd thought. Margaret Lawson's office door was shut when we got there. Through the frosted glass, I could see her rigid posture, even seated. Dad knocked, and she made us wait a full 3 minutes before saying, "Come in." "Margaret," Dad started, "there's a huge mistake. They're digging on my land." She barely glanced up from her screen, her sleek auburn hair unmauve-whiting as she shook her head. "Check your property lines, Henry. The community needs a bigger gym. The board voted unanimously last month." "I wasn't told about any vote," Dad said, his voice sharpening. "That land's mine. I bought it in '87. Margaret met our eyes at last, her smile stiff and rehearsed. "Records say otherwise." Maybe at your age, memory gets fuzzy. My dad, sharp as a tacker, remembers everyone's birthday. "Show me the records," he demanded. She slid a folder over. Inside was a map with unfamiliar boundaries and a paper with Dad's signature, supposedly selling the buffer zone to the HOA. His face went pale. "I didn't sign this." The meeting was March 12th. "You were there, Henry," Margaret said, her tone dripping with false worry. "Your name's all over our funding docs. Maybe your daughter should look into your health." That night, a storm hit Pinewood. I woke to the sound of water, not rain, but a gushing flood. I followed it to our basement, stepping into 3 inches of muck. Cracks had split our foundation where it met the back wall, right where they'd been digging. I called Margaret at home. She picked up instantly, like she'd been waiting. "Property damage is an HOA business," she said before I could finish. "Call your insurance. Your construction broke our foundation." "Prove it," she replied, then hung up. Dad sat on the basement steps, staring at the rising water, swallowing his old photos and keepsakes. He looked frail, diminished. "Something's wrong," he whispered. "My name's on their funding, but I never okayed this." "What do you mean? Your name's on it?" He looked away. "I've backed the HOA financially for years. Anonymously. No one was supposed to know." Before I could digest that, a deafening crack shook the house. We ran outside into the rain to find our backyard pool split in half, water pouring out as the ground beneath it buckled. My phone pinged with a text. "Emergency HOA meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. All residents must attend. Fines for absence." Dad gazed at the wrecked pool, rain soaking his pajamas. "They knew this would happen," he said softly. "They knew and did it anyway." I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table, wondering how the neighborhood my dad helped create had turned on him so brutally, and why. The community center hummed with murmurs when we walked in the next morning. Lifelong friends suddenly couldn't meet our eyes. Mrs. Gupta, whose son I'd tutored through middle school, turned away when I waved. Margaret stood at the podium, pristine in a teal blazer despite the hour. "We're here to celebrate progress on our new state-of-the-art fitness center," she declared, clicking to a slide of a shiny glass building labeled Pinewood Wellness Center. No mention of our flooded basement or ruined pool. Dad raised his hand. She ignored him for 10 agonizing minutes before nodding his way. "That construction damaged my property," he said firmly, "and it's on land I own." Whispers spread. Margaret's smile didn't waver. "As I told you yesterday, Henry, the boundaries were legally updated last month. Your signature's on the papers. I never signed anything." She sighed theatrically. This is why we needed unanimous board approval to avoid messes like this. She clicked to a slide showing a document with Dad's signature. As for your so-called damage, our contractors follow safety rules. Any issues with your home are on you. Dad stood, swaying slightly. Margaret, stop lying. I never. His words cut off as he gripped his chest and stumbled. I caught him just before he hit the floor. Call an ambulance, I yelled. As paramedics loaded him, and 20 minutes later, I saw Margaret and 3 board members huddled across the lot, watching. None offered help. The mild heart attack, the doctor said hours later, means rest and no stress. I gave a hollow laugh. Not an option right now. When I got home, water seeped across our front lawn. The construction had hit our water main. Our driveway was a web of fresh cracks. Taped to our door was an HOA violation. Due loss $750 fine for unsightly property damage. Repairs due in 7 days. I crumpled it and stormed back to the community center for answers. It was dark except for Margaret's office. Through her window, I saw her with a man in a pricey suit, her husband, D. Lawson, who owned Lawson Construction, the gym's builder. A voice startled me. They're meeting the bank about financing. I turned to see Tom Evans, our neighbor of 15 years, in the shadows, looking uneasy. What's going on, Tom? Why's everyone acting weird? He glanced at Margaret's window. The HOA's broke, Laura. We've been in debt for years. Margaret sold everyone on this gym SAVYing us, raising property values, luring rich newcomers. But that doesn't explain. Your dad's land was the only spot. She found out he's been the secret donor keeping us afloat. Thought he wouldn't mind GIVYing more. My head spun. By stealing it. Tom shrugged. The board voted. Democracy, right? Dad's on the board. He didn't vote. He was in the hospital that day. Someone had planned it perfectly. I got home to find 3 more violation notices on our door. The latest gut-punched me. Pool violation, improper drainage, due law $2,500 fine. They were fining us for the pool they broke. Inside, Dad's office was trash. Someone had rifled through it. His safe hung open, empty, but for one folder, HOA funding. Inside was proof he'd been the HOA's main backer for decades via his investment firm. But newer papers had signatures that didn't quite match the old ones. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Storage room behind community center kitchen. Tomorrow 2 p.m. Come alone if you want to save your dad's land. As I stared at it, water poured through our ceiling lights. The shifting ground was tearing our home apart, and I knew this was just the start. The jackhammer's pounding woke me at 5:17 a.m., too loud to block with a pillow. From my window, I saw workers swarming what used to be our quiet buffer zone. They're starting earlier every day, I muttered, grabbing my phone to record the violation of noise rules. More ammo for our case. Dad sat at the kitchen table, hands unsteady as he gripped his coffee. The relentless noise had worn him thin, his usual strength replaced by fragility. I talked to the Clarks yesterday, he said quietly. 12 years as neighbors, and now they won't look at me. I nodded, recalling how their kids learned to swim in our pool. Everyone's picking sides, and it's not ours. The doorbell rang, knotting my stomach. Lately, VY Ciders meant trouble. It was Pete Sanders, whose son had celebrated his 10th birthday in our yard. Your sprinkler's hitting my driveway, he said coldly. HOA's strict on water waste. Pete, our sprinklers are busted. The construction cracked the pipes. We haven't used them in weeks. Then fix it, he snapped. And those driveway cracks? They're ugly. I snapped back. Those cracks are from your gym project shaking our foundation. You know that. His face tightened. Your family's got cash to fix a few cracks. Stop hogging community upgrades. He left. His neighbors watched from their porches, none offering a friendly nod. People we'd shared holidays with now saw us as foes. The mail brought 3 new HOA notices with steep fines. Unsightly property damage. Improper landscaping. Unauthorized drainage. They're fining us for their mess, Dad said, his hands shaking as he read them. I grabbed my coat. I'm talking to Margaret. Please don't, he begged. Your temper won't help. I'll stay cool, I promised. The HOA office buzzed with gym plans plastered on the walls, glossy images of happy families on our stolen land. Margaret sat behind her desk, her silver hair framing icy eyes. We're being fined for damage your construction caused, I said, slapping the notices down. This stops now. She barely looked at them. Our compliance officer logged those. Appeal next month if you want. Next month? Our home's falling apart now. Her smile thinned. If your dad hadn't fought the expansion, we might have worked with you. He never approved it. You forged his signature. Big claims need big proof. Henry's been off lately forgetting things. Focus on his health, not this. I noticed neighbors I'd known forever avoiding my gaze. They'd all known and stayed silent. Walking home, I heard machinery rumble. I ran the last block to see a massive crack split our driveway. The foreman shrugged. Ground shifts. Not my issue if your place can't take it. That night, our insurance denied our claims, citing earth movement exclusions. The house groaned around us, fighting to stand. Dad winced at every creak. Next morning, the noise worsened. He wanted his garden his sanctuary for decades. I watched from the kitchen as he knelt by his roses, then clutched his chest and fell. Dad! I screamed, running out. He couldn't speak, his face gray as he gasped. I called 911, shouting over the construction din. As the ambulance took him, I saw Margaret and board members watching across the street. None moved to help. At the hospital, the doctor said, stress-induced cardiac episode. He needs total rest. An impossible order. That night, I returned to a dark house-no power, no water. A notice on the door read, emergency water main repair due to construction. SARE VYC out 24 to 48 hours. They cut us off without warning while Dad was hospitalized. I sat in the silence and finally let myself cry, wondering how our neighbors could abandon us so fully. Then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I've seen what they're doing to your family. I can help. Meet me tomorrow, Main Street Coffee Shop. Alex. I stared at it, wary. Who was Alex? Could I trust anyone here? The coffee shop's morning chatter felt alien compared to our war-zone neighborhood. A man in a neat green shirt waved from a corner table. You must be Henry's kid, he said as I approached. I'm Alex Torres. Moved into the blue house on Elm last month. I studied him. Why'd you text me? How'd you get my number? He slid over a business card. Property rights attorney. Mrs. Gomez gave it to me. She's worried about you, but too afraid to act openly. My chest tightened. Someone still cared. Why help us? You don't know us. I've seen this before, Alex said, his jaw tightening. My old HOA pushed a pool project using the president's cousin's firm. By the time we exposed the kickbacks, 3 families lost everything. Hope sparked. You think that's happening here? I know it is. He opened his laptop. Margaret's husband owns Apex Construction, the gym's builder. I've checked their permits, tons of red flags. For an hour, he showed me rushed permits, missing studies, and property line errors. Your dad's land was rezoned while he was in the hospital for his hip replacement, Alex said, pointing to timestamps. The signatures don't match. We've been saying they're fake. We need more proof, but this is a start. With your dad's original records and my expertise, we've got a shot. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of fight. Dad keeps everything in his office. Great. We move fast. They'll shred Eve Denke if they panic. Alex walked me to my car, planning next steps. I'll dig into permit history. You get those docs. Meet at my place tomorrow. My phone rang. Mrs. Gomez, panicked. Come home now. Water's everywhere. I sped back to see a geyser where the crew had dug, flooding straight toward our house. Inside, the basement was swamped, Dad's office hardest hit. Papers floated as I scrambled to save them, but too much was lost. Hours later, as I spread soggy files to dry, Margaret knocked, holding a notice, improper drainage, Dulaw 500 fine. You're fining us for your water main break? Rules are rules, she smirked. Oh, and dues are up 25 fan tram for construction costs, effective now. After she left, I called Alex, voice cracking. They're drowning us in fines and wrecked our proof. Don't quit, he said. Documented all photos, VY Deos, notices. Other neighbors are fed up too. You're not alone. That night, I hid my tears when I VY-sided Dad. He saw through me. Tell me, he insisted. I spilled the flood, the lost papers, the fines. He smiled weakly. They think they've beaten us. They don't know about the safe deposit box. What box? Pinewood Credit Union. Duplicates of all my property docs. Keys in my dresser, cigar box. I squeezed his hand, hope surging. You're a genius. Just cautious, he said. I'm home tomorrow. They're planning a gym opening soon. I want to be there. But your heart fighting's my medicine now. Next day, with Dad resting at home, I met Alex at the bank. The safe deposit box held gold, original surveys, deeds, and signatures that clearly didn't match the forgeries. "This is huge," Alex said, snapping photos. "I've got 3 ex-board members ready to testify about Margaret's bullying, plus the county inspector, her cousin. We worked late at his place, building our case." Neighbors started reaching out quietly. The Sanders daughter whispered in the store that her parents regretted siding against us, but feared retaliation. Mrs. Gomez brought food and secret board meeting recordings. Our team grew, but so did the danger. Construction sped up, the gym nearly done despite obvious flaws. The grand opening was set for the next weekend, rushing our prep. Margaret sent Dad a taunting invite, calling him their generous donor. "We're going," he insisted. "They think we'll hide." They're wrong. The night before, I stood at my window, staring at the gym's shaky foundation. We weren't just SAVYing our land, we were SAVYing our community's soul. Tomorrow would decide what stood or fell. My hands trembled as I tied Dad's tie. "You sure about this?" He looked pale in his dark suit. "Never been surer," he said, voice faint but firm. "They think I'm too weak to fight. Let's prove them wrong." The community center buzzed with festive energy balloons, a banner, Pinewood Wellness Center grand opening. Margaret greeted folks with a champagne flute, her smile fading when she saw us. "Henry, should you be up?" she cooed falsely. "We could have emailed pics." "Wouldn't miss it," Dad replied. Alex joined us with a thick folder. "All set," he whispered. We sat in back, neighbors' stares icy or guilty. Pete Sanders squirmed when he spotted us. Margaret took the mic. "Today's a milestone. This gym will lift property values and unite us." Applause. I gripped Dad's hand. None of this would have happened without our benefactors, especially Henry Carter, whose firm has funded us for years. Murmurs rose. People turned, puzzled. "I'd like Henry to speak about this great addition." Dad rose slowly, Alex handing him the folder. His walk to the stage was agonizing, each step a battle. Margaret reached for the folder. He held tight. "Thanks, Margaret," he said, voice suddenly robust. "I've got plenty to say." Silence fell. "This gym's on stolen land." He showed a survey. "Here's the original from when I bought it 20 years ago." Margaret cut in. "Henry, maybe your meds, this isn't about meds, it's about fraud," he boomed. "While I was in the hospital, someone forged my signature." He held up a fake. "Approvying my land and funds for this." Gasps. Margaret snapped. "The board voted on fake papers," Alex shouted, standing. "I've filed with the county and state." "Security, remove him," she ordered. 2 guards moved, but neighbors rose. "Let him talk." "Mrs. Gupta yelled. They blocked my ramp, said it had hurt values. Others chimed in, airing grievances. Margaret's face twisted. "This is a celebration." I stood, phone aloft. "I'm live streaming. 300 neighbors are watching." Dad pressed on. "Construction wrecked my home, cracked my pool, flooded my basement, cut my water. We got fined for their damage." Margaret lunged, but Alex blocked her. And the kicker? The builder's her husband. 5 board members got kickbacks. Chaos erupted. Margaret grabbed for the mic. It crashed, screeching. Then, a deep crack sounded. The new wall split. "Everyone out," Alex yelled. "Foundations failing." People ran. I reached Dad, who stood calm as the gym crumbled. "You've ruined it," Margaret screamed. "No, you did," he said. Outside, cracks spidered across the facade. Pete approached, pale. "Henry, they said you'd agreed." "People believe what they want," Dad sighed. Police and news vans arrived. Margaret tried to flee. Alex flagged her to cops. "This isn't over," she hissed. The gym's entrance collapsed in a dusty roar. I helped Dad to the car, his strength fading. "You okay?" He glanced at the ruin, then Margaret with police. "I will be." How many others couldn't fight her? At home, he studied our battered house. "Worth it?" I asked. "Standing up to bullies always is," he said. "But the real fight's just starting. She's got allies, and the HOA still runs most of this place." What happens when the anger fades? My phone buzzed with neighbors' offers to help. Would it last? 3 weeks later, we still lived with damage, but change brewed. Alex called, Channel 7. Now, I flipped it on to see Margaret in cuffs, the reporter saying, "HOA president arrested for fraud, embezzlement, permit violations." Dad shuffled in. "That's her." More arrests follow her husband, 3 board members. They diverted Dula $2 million, the reporter said. They did it, Dad whispered. Neighbors texted apologies. That afternoon, Pete and 20 others showed up with tools. We're here to help, he said, ashamed. Why now? I asked. Mrs. Gupta rolled forward. We were scared. She threatened us. Dad and VY Ted them in. James brought pizza and news. County's freezing HOA assets. Appointed a temp manager. A retired judge, Linda Hayes, took over. At a packed school gym meeting, she said, your HOA's been illegal for years, manipulated votes, stolen funds. James was nominated for the new board, Dad for the transition team. Repairs began. Our pool, foundation, garden fixed by Lawson Construction, per county order. The original deed returned to Dad's name. The gym was slated for demolition. He eyed the papers, teary. Let's make it a community park. 3 months later, we opened it. Paths for Mrs. Gupta, swings for kids. This is ours, Dad said. Margaret and her husband got 2 years, restitution ordered. Trust, Dad noted, would take longer to rebuild than our home. But as new neighbors moved in across the street, we went to greet them, ready to start fresh.